Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Rays Hail Report. I'm your host, Matthew Heiserman, and today we are joined by Washington Commanders journalist for the Commanders Wire, Josh Taylor. Josh, it's great to have you on.
Appreciate it, Matthew. I'm excited. First episode. I'm looking forward to seeing the show grow. So it's an honor to be the first, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you coming on. And getting right into it, one of the first things I want to talk about is the recent trade rumors surrounding Jalen Ramsey. So he made a few Twitter posts yesterday,
Mhm.
and then he also made that one post that caught a lot of people's attention where he just posted the number 5 and
Yeah.
then, the 5 dot dot dot. A lot of people were, I guess, trying to figure out what that meant. A lot of people made their own conspiracies. Some people, mostly Commanders fans, thought it was 5 for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
5 days until June 1st when he might get traded. Obviously, he wears the jersey number 5. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. You
Mhm.
stated that you think his most likely trade destination is to the Rams. Can you just break down why you see Los Angeles as the front runner and then maybe what you think that post meant?
Yeah, for me, I think the 5 was that post June 1st, designation. And he kind of talked about it in another tweet that he followed up with, like, excited for the new beginning or something like
Yeah.
that. But he also kind of mentioned, like, I've enjoyed, like, everywhere I've gone. So he kind of, like, reference
Mhm.
to the past. So the Rams being part of, that
Yeah.
past for me kind of caught my eye. But it just seems like that's been like the one team that he's been linked to the most. I
Mhm.
know Washington was brought up briefly by Jeremy Fowler. It wasn't anything too crazy.
Yeah.
But of course, like knowing Adam Peters, it wouldn't surprise me if he's checked in on Jalen Ramsey. But
Mhm.
I would be surprised if they were interested in, trading any kind of draft capital. They're already in the hole again for this draft coming up next season. But then also taking on a contract that another team, pretty much gave him. You're kind of taking on a lot of that salary more than likely with his dead cap that he has. And I mean, Miami's in a bad situation. They're in a lose-lose situation with Ramsey
Yeah.
regardless. So I'm interested to see what happens with that situation. I think he is gone though. I mean, it sounds
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
that relationship's as broken as it could be. But for me, it's just that the Rams seems like the best fit. When we talk about,
Mhm.
the money they'll have, the draft capital, they used to like not having high draft picks anyways, and they still draft really well. But then also just that familiarity and the need at corner, for me just makes a lot of sense for the Rams, more so than Washington. Like if they were to like trade, I don't know. Like I kind of said this on my live stream the other day. Like the only thing I could see, and it's crazy, is like trading Marshawn for
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey, like straight up. Just because both of them have contract situations. Lattimore doesn't have much guaranteed next year, and he has none the year after that. So that's the only thing I could really see happening. I couldn't see Washington trading like a third when they already don't have a second. They already don't have a fourth. It just wouldn't make a lot of sense to me for Washington to do that, especially with their corner room as good as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only realistic trade, which you mentioned, would probably be giving up Marshawn Lattimore or
Mhm.
another piece in the secondary that they probably don't want to give up. And even if they did go after Ramsey, what would that fit look like in Washington's secondary now that there is Lattimore, there is Trey Amos, there is Sanders still? Is there really room for him next to the young guys?
For me, I don't see it unless you did trade Lattimore. Then of course,
Yeah.
yeah, he could be that other outside guy. But outside of that, like everyone's saying, oh, just throw him to safety. He'd be the highest paid safety in the league, like
Yeah.
at the contract that he's at. I just don't know if that's something that for me, the whole situation with Ramsey just goes against everything Adam Peters has always believed, everything he's always led with his decision making, with his contract. Going back to even like John Allen, that situation, like it just as good of a player as he was, they thought highly of him. It just financially, it didn't fit for what they wanted to do long term. They said, hey, we'll let you go find a contract somewhere else. For Jalen Ramsey, for his age coming up, for his contract, it's just all of it goes against what I think Adam Peters does as a GM, especially what he's done here in Washington, to just say, "Oh, we'll throw him at safety and just pay him a ton of money." For me, it just wouldn't make sense. I would love it if he's a good safety because I'm concerned with our safety room,
Yeah.
but I like Trey Amos. I love Sanders still, obviously. I mean, I think Trey Amos is a sleeper to be defensive rookie of the year, honestly. Especially with if Lattimore's healthy, he's going to get not a lot of targets unless it's like those marquee matchups like Evans and AJ Brown, where he was seeing a good bit of targets last year. But teams are going to go after the rookie. They're going to go after the guy they haven't seen yet with Trey Amos. So I like what his fit is. I would just hate to, I don't want to say ruin development, but also just take away that time from those young guys that have really high ceilings by adding Ramsey.
Now, I also want to touch on the talk that there's been surrounding Terry McLaurin's contract extension. He's coming off by far the best season of his career. And, some people are calling what's happening at OTAs a standoff. And I guess it is to an extent, but it's also not mandatory
Yeah.
what they're doing right now. I believe the mandatory OTAs start on June 10th and go to June 12th. That said, he's still not there. And before we get into what that means, I just want to ask, when they hopefully get this deal done, what could that extension look like in terms of money? I know you wrote something earlier today that talked about kind of the DK Metcalf comparison. So what could that extension look like? And, when will this deal get done in your mind?
I mean, talking about when, I feel like best case scenario is before you get to that sensitive time of the mandatory mini camp, like you said, June 10th. That's when, for me, like, I'm not going to really make it into a headline. Of course, I'm going to talk about it because it's an important thing.
Yeah.
It's worth dating that, one of your best players, if not like your best player and your team star players missing mandatory practice time. But also want to note, like, in Terry's defense, he wants to be out there, and he was phase 1 and phase 2. This isn't a T Higgins, requesting a trade, or Trey Hendrickson showing up in his BMW salesman outfit. Just like having some public, standoff. That's not it at all. And, Buddy Baker's a great agent. I like Buddy, but it's his job to protect his player financially, but then also like well-being, like just overall in his life. So if I know a deal's close and I know my player is participating in these, like I said, voluntary practices that a lot of players are missing. Myles Garrett's in Tokyo after getting that contract. Marshawn's not there. Larry Tunsil's not there. It's a league-wide thing. This isn't just some Washington ordeal. Something we do every single offseason. We blow it out of proportion, and then they report like, oh, okay, we don't have anything clickbait to talk about anymore. But if I know my player is out there in a voluntary practice, if he gets tweaked, it almost happened with Justin Jefferson with his contract when he got hurt. Everyone's like, oh no, like, here we go. Like, he just missed out on like that big deal. Luckily, Minnesota did the right thing and still paid him what he was, deserving of. But the last thing you want for Terry, who's 29, love him to death, but he is getting a little old. Doesn't look like it on the field, but number-wise, he's getting up there, which I'm older, so I can't say too much. But I don't want him out there if it risks him, that financial freedom that he's worked for, that he's deserving of, to provide for his family, like for himself. That's more important. Like, so I just want people to think about that. What's more important, his financial freedom, like his life, his family, or voluntary practice in the bubble, or you're not really learning too much. I love seeing Debo there because that's the kind of player I want to see there. And he's been there since day one. Debo's awesome. But for Terry, he knows the system. He has the relationship. He has a connection with Jaden. I'm not stressing that at all. And then just hitting on the money that you talked about with DK, Spot Track put out that tweet yesterday. I thought that was spot on. I think Terry is better than DK. I'm confident in saying that. But he is 2 years older than DK. So I'm trying to take that into account, where DK was right at 33 mil a year. So I think that's probably the gap that Washington and Terry's probably at right now, like the difference between 31 to 33 mil a year. And I think when it's all said and done, he probably will be right at that 33, if not like 32 and a half. But it wouldn't surprise me if he passed it either. But I think there's just a lot of pieces too. Like Marshawn could get a reworked deal. Larry Tunsil could get a reworked deal. They could sign a 1-year vet, and that throws, a lot of salary cap for this year. So you also have to take into consideration what the first year of Terry's deal looks like. It's just Adam Peters has this giant puzzle right now, and he doesn't want to put too big of a piece for Terry. And it kind of doesn't allow you to add Zadarius Smith, add Jadeveon Clowney or something like that later on, and take yourself out of that situation. So I'm glad I'm not AP. But I'm glad. I think it will get done. I think it should be done before June 10th. I have faith.
And I think circling back to the OTA situation, I think people are making that something that it really isn't. I mean, you mentioned how he's already been in this offense for a while. He knows everything. I think for a lot of the guys, it's just getting, fresh again, getting back onto the field. And I think it's just interesting with Terry McLaurin because you also mentioned how Tunsil and Lattimore were not there as well. People wouldn't be talking about this as much as they are, um, unless McLaurin had this extension looming. And you obviously, I was watching Bram Weinstein recently,
Mhm.
and he mentioned something. Obviously, people just have to do stuff. Sometimes he might just not be able to make it because he has something to do. He can't get out there, and I think the extension is adding a lot more attention to it that you wouldn't necessarily see, just for other reasons that he might not be able to get out there, or the fact that he just doesn't want to show up completely unrelated to the extension.
Yeah, I think he had like a wedding or something he went
Mhm.
to.
Yeah.
I can't remember Terry. So like that's something else too. Like unless you're like following these guys on Instagram, like you don't know, like there could be family stuff going on outside of it. Like obviously the contract is a big deal, but like you said, if Terry was like in a 5-year deal right now and he's coasting, I promise you he would not be missing these kind of practices. Because back in like 2022, he was asked not to attend the practices too with his contract, and he said publicly, he's like, I want to be out there.
Yeah.
I can't right now. Like I'm in a bad situation. Like I can't please everybody, so I kind of have to look out for myself right now.
Mhm.
So that's what I keep going back to. I know it's a new regime and everything, but it's just the same cut dry kind of thing. Like it's not worth getting hurt if you know this big deal, and this is probably his last big deal of his career too. Like this is his last opportunity to really get that big deal that he's been working for, even more than the one he got previously. So for me, it just makes a lot of sense. I don't mind him not being there, and same with Lattimore. For a fan base that complains about how hurt he is all the time, if he's like rehabbing and he's training off the field right now, that's fine with me. I'll see him at mandatory mini camps, but the last thing we need is him tweaking his hamstring
Mhm.
at OTAs, and the fan base is like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, here we go. Why is he even out there? Like,
Mhm.
but if the opposite were to
Yeah.
happen, you'd be like, oh, where is he? So it's a lose-lose situation for Lattimore, in my opinion. And Tunzel has never been an OTA guy. Like, just if it's voluntary, he's not going to be there. That's how he was at Houston. So that didn't surprise me at all either.
And I think people kind of just want to see him out there for verification that, he still wants to be on this team. Even if he was out there, though, like people want him to be, it wouldn't make a difference in, anything that people are thinking right now. So I think it's really just coming down to Commanders fans overthinking it right now, and I think that will hopefully be resolved soon when he gets that extension. And then on Tuesday, the Commanders' preseason schedule was officially released. On August 8th, they play on the road against the Patriots. That's followed up by 2 home games on August 18th against the Bengals and August 23rd against the Ravens. We still have over 2 months to go, but is there anything that's really standing out to you about the preseason schedule that you saw?
Yeah, I like how we're gonna be getting that joint practice with the Patriots, and it sounds
Mhm,
like even on a short week, there's gonna be one joint practice with the Ravens. I think Harbaugh was
mhm.
kind of talking
Yeah.
about. Which I don't know. That's a kind of a stressful short
Mhm.
week with a lot of stuff going on. But like I thought it was cool. Like I think they announced we're on ESPN, like on that Monday night game against the Bengals. But I love preseason. Like I go to the game still, especially when I get excited about like the UDFAs. I like this UDFA class. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of guys that can show up. Ja'Cory Brooks, Carlin Vigors, and Robert McDaniel, probably my 3 favorite. I just get excited about those guys that get a real opportunity to showcase themselves in a game, like against other guys that are fighting for roster spots, like we saw with Michael Wiley last year. Like that's the kind of action I like to see. I want to see who wants to step up. And I know it's just preseason to some people, but like people like don't even watch the second half. I'm like, I'm locked in for the whole thing, man, because you just never know who's going to be that guy that steals a roster spot and tries to make some kind of big play throughout the season. So for me, I love preseason. I like how Washington is kind of like spread out. We are going to New England with that joint practice. Might have
Mhm.
to go up north for that, but there's 2 at home, so like that's even better. I feel like we usually only get like 1 home preseason game,
Mhm.
like when we were
Yeah.
bad. So at least we get 2 now. And I do like the joint practices too. I feel like you get so much more out of those. I used to go to them back in the day when it was in like Richmond, and it was when like Tom Brady was on the Patriots, and it was like Vince Wilfork and all of them. And it's just cool to see them like compete against one like the other, another team in the league as they're trying to get better and try to get ready for the season, especially with all the new pieces too.
Mhm.
With the offensive line,
Yeah.
adding Debo, a lot of pieces of defense. There's just once again a lot of turnover on this roster. Not as much as last year, but still a good bit. This is the time to really get those wrinkles out. It's like, okay, let's actually get ready for the season. So I'm pumped. I know it seems far away. It's gonna
Mhm.
get here fast though.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned how maybe winning played a part in getting those 2 home games. I wanna talk about some of the other stuff that's done for this team. Obviously, there's been a lot of benefits recently, being able to host the 2027 NFL Draft, waiting to see if the new stadium is going to be built, and then in terms of their schedule, 6 primetime games, not including the Christmas game, as well as the game that they play in Spain against the Dolphins. That streak continued, when just over a week ago, it was announced that the Commanders, as well as the rest of the NFC East, will be featured on the in-season Hard Knocks. I just wanna, I guess, get your initial reaction to this announcement, and what image do you see this portraying on the front office and the organization as a whole?
Yeah, I think Hard Knocks. It's a great opportunity for a lot. I mean, Washington fans too, but like, I feel like we've seen the turnaround even in this 1 year, but outside fan bases to
Mhm.
really see how far Washington has come.
Yeah.
You go, I hate to kind of like harp on it, but you go back to like the Giants Hard Knocks. How long did people talk about like the Saquon Barkley situation and just how
Mhm.
bad they really fumbled a lot of those moves?
Yeah.
Xavier McKinney, it was a negative spotlight. So I feel like you will see a lot of toxic, television in the NFC East,
Mhm.
especially like with the fan bases and just the competition with the game. It's just that's our division, and it's the best division in
Mhm.
football. But I'm excited for other people to be like, man, Washington really is doing, everything just the right way now. Like
Mhm.
starting at the very top from like Josh Harris as the owner, all the way down to, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, and now with Jaden Daniels and how he is too. Because something I said this on my live stream too. One thing I'm looking forward to this season is we get more Jaden Daniels speaking. Because as a rookie, you don't really want your rookie quarterback talking much. It took a while for him to get to the
Yeah.
media, which I mean, rightfully so. You're not really, protecting him, but it's the media is going to media, and I'm in that, so I can say that. But I'm excited that we get to see more of Jaden just being himself. And I feel like a lot of other fan bases have seen him on the field, seen, what he's done, but I really want them to see him as a person, but then also just the rest of the team, the connection, just that leadership in the locker room and just how different it is. So it is going to be, a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of, NFC East stuff going on, but I think it's going to be a really positive spotlight for a team that even Roger Goodell in the NFL is really just pushing right now with the primetime games, like you said, the draft, the stadium. This is the hottest team. Like I've
Mhm.
never seen, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen an NFL team have this much like momentum and change and like positive like agenda going on at one time. So it's a great time, and this is the perfect time to be a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe one of the other teams that I'm thinking of is, like, the Jets after they added Aaron Rodgers and they sucked previously, but
Yeah, they
that
tried, but
it doesn't really compare because they didn't necessarily build it from scratch,
Mhm.
like the Commanders are doing right now with their drafting. And you mentioned how they limited, Jaden Daniels' media that he was able to do last year.
Mhm.
Towards the middle of the season, I'd say up to around, like, week 13, 14, everyone was talking about the Rookie of the Year debate, him or Caleb. It wasn't really much of a debate. Any Commanders fan could tell you that. People were still talking about it, especially with Bo Nix as well in that
Yeah. Yeah, Bo
conversation.
Nix put up a fight. I'm not gonna lie. Bo Nix looked
Yeah, yeah.
nice.
Mhm. especially when he was having like those 4 or 5 touchdown games towards the end of the year. But I think whatever Jaden says, you said this, the media is going to put a spin on it. They're going to make it impact the decision. And now that Jaden's really solidified himself as the top quarterback from that class and one of the best quarterbacks in the league, I think they're going to be a lot more open and just letting him do what he wants to do. And we're going to be able to see a lot more of that
Mhm.
this year. And transitioning into the defense, going into the NFL draft, defensive end was one of Washington's biggest needs, especially after losing Dante Fowler in free agency. They only had 5 draft picks. They didn't end up taking a defensive end, and I think I'm okay with that, specifically because of how confident they looked with all the picks they made. Um, they said that if Josh Connerly wasn't there in the first round, they were going to trade that pick anyway. So I'm not necessarily stressed that they didn't take a defensive end there. They did end up signing Dietrich Weiss Jr.,
Mhm.
so that will make a slight impact. But do you think they're done targeting an edge before the start of the season? Or, if they go after someone, who could that guy potentially be?
Yeah, so I honestly I think Dietrich Wise is a pretty under the radar, one
Yeah.
of those like
Mhm.
sneaky signings.
I like
I'm
him
not
a lot.
saying yeah, I'm not saying he's gonna have like 10 sacks or anything like
Yeah.
that next year, but I feel like the run stopping will be better this year coming up, especially, even adding Javon Kinlaw in the middle there. They played Deron Payne on the edge a good bit last season, actually. Like when I went
Mhm.
back and like
Yeah.
checked the numbers, I was watching the film. I was like, look at Deron Payne out there, like the 7 tech. What's he doing all the way out there? But he was out
Mhm.
there often.
Yep.
Um, but it did surprise me that they didn't draft somebody, especially after, all just how much smoke was around. Like, oh, they're going to trade for Myles Garrett. They're going to trade for Trey Hendrickson. They're going to get anybody and everybody. And then TJ Watt popped up. And it's just every time there was any kind of big name edge being connected to being traded or released or in free agency, I mean, Khalil Mack, like you name it, Washington was like the top team every single time. So I was surprised, but at the same time, when I go back and look at it, like there's a lot of bodies in that edge room. My thing is like who's going to be the guy that really stands up, and
Mhm.
I think I think Dorrance Armstrong will see some more of those finishes this year. Like the sack numbers will go up. Those TFLs, stopping the run in the backfield will go up this year. So I feel good about Dorrance. Like I said, I feel good about Dietrich Wise. I think Javonte Jean Baptiste has a lot of goods, man.
Mhm.
I think in the limited snaps he played, like when I went back, I was like, man, there might be something. Like once again, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he's a starter in the league, like he's
Yeah.
a 3 down guy. Let him put his hand in the dirt and just he can do it all. But I feel like there's a lot to build off of with Jean Baptiste. So I'm excited for that. Jacob Martin, he can get some sacks, rotating in. So I think he can kind of fill in that gap when it comes to sack numbers. Um, but I think for me, that's probably one of the positions. Like when I'm at training camp, practice in July, I'm going to be looking at that edge group. I want to see somebody say, hey, there is this opportunity here. I want to show the coaching staff that this is
Mhm.
this is my like this is my spot, and I think Dietrich Wise, Javonte Jean Baptiste is going to be that guy, and if not, AP is not afraid to to pick up the
Mhm.
phone,
Mhm.
and Lance Newmark talked about it a little bit. Was it right after the draft? He said, "I have a board in my office I see every day with current free agents." And he's in contact with all of them. And soon after that is when we signed the kicker, Matt Gay, and when they got rid of Gonzalez. But he said, I see that board every day. I go in there, I'm checking on all these players. But something that a lot of people forget about: Von Miller, Zadarius Smith, Jadavian Clowney. When do these guys usually sign? They don't want to go to OTAs.
Mhm.
They're in Spain right now. They're in Miami. They're spending the kids just got out of school. They're spending time with family right now.
Mhm.
They have no reason once
Yeah.
again to be at these OTAs with a brand new team. Like, hey, I'm chilling. If you want to call me up, I've been in this league for 10, 12 years, whatever it is. Y'all know what I can do. I'll see
Mhm.
y'all in July. So I think they will watch that position and safety too. If Justin Simmons is still out there, Blackman's still out there. But for the edge group, I think they're going to watch mini camp. They're going to see how things go leading up to training camp. And if they're like, hey, we just don't feel good about this group right now. We feel like, we can get one of those vets on a pretty good deal, and
Mhm.
it's going to make that much of a difference and it's worth it, then let's do it. So could they
Mhm.
be done? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if this is what they rolled with. Cool. They love to blitz Frankie Louvu. They did bring in some bodies. They helped the interior too. Javon Kinlaw. We'll see what happens. But at the same time, if no one, like I said, depth wise, steps up in camp or anything like that, even like preseason, call one of those vets. Von
Yeah.
Miller will come in on third, fourth down
Mhm.
and try to get to the quarterback.
Now, I think Weiss is very consistent, not in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be great out there, but he has 4.5 sacks in 5 of his 8 seasons in the league. He's played at least 14 games in every single one of those seasons. I think the only way he doesn't hit that 4.5 sack mark again is if he doesn't play those 14 games, and I don't see that being a reality. He's been extremely reliable throughout his career. And then some of the names that you mentioned just don't really stand out to me. Clowney's 32, 5.5 sacks last year. Von Miller, 36, had 6 sacks. Zadarius Smith, 32, had 9 sacks. Preston Smith, 32, had 4.5 sacks. And then Matthew Judon, 32, had 5.5 sacks. All of those guys are at least 32 years old, and I'd say those might be your top 5 options.
Mm-hmm.
They're all at least 32 years old. Miller's a lot older. And then besides Zadarius Smith, who played all 17 games and got 9 sacks, they've shown a major decline in production over the past few years. And it makes you wonder, if you go out and you get a Von Miller or a Preston Smith or a Matthew Judon, are they really going to be better than Dietrich Weiss? Are they really going to be better than Dorrance Armstrong? And at this point in their career, I'm not really sure. And I also don't know if those veterans are going to want to sign on small 1 year deals. Because I don't really think that obviously a multi year deal just wouldn't make sense for them. Paying them a
Yeah.
lot of money wouldn't make sense when you have Weiss. I forget his contract. I think it's well under $5 million, though,
Yeah, it was
on a
a it was
one
a
year
very
deal.
reasonable deal.
Yeah, I mean, you're just not really, unless maybe you want to use them just for the veteran leadership, you're not getting anything from them that you wouldn't get from Weiss or Armstrong already.
Yeah, and out of that whole group, a lot of them are just situational guys. Like,
Yep.
I don't Von Miller, all of his sacks came on third or fourth down. He wasn't out there first down stuff in the run. That's just not who he is anymore. So I think Dietrich Wise could absolutely be that guy. I don't even know how old Dietrich Wise is, honestly.
I
Let me
think
see.
29 years old, but I have to double
Okay.
check.
Yeah, but I know he's not like young. He's
30. 30
30,
years
so
old.
he just turned 30 not too long ago. But I go back because I actually did I had to scout a couple games last year for the Patriots. So I went back and watched a couple of those games. It just seemed like he wasn't like giving up like those big plays that like Washington struggled with last year. So
Yeah.
even though he might not be some flashy, like I said, stat padding like kind of guy, he's going to do the dirty work. He's going to
Mhm.
make sure that edge is set if it comes his way, and he's just going to do his job. So yeah, it would be nice to have 10 sacks, but if I had to pick, Fowler with all his sacks, but I mean getting benched in an NFC Championship game because he couldn't stop the run,
Mhm.
or having somebody that won't let those plays happen and still get you, like you said, 4.5, 5 sacks a
Mhm.
season, I'm taking that all day. If that's the
Yeah.
case, trust your back end and you build out the corner room. Your linebacker core is good. You, like I said, you blitz with Louvu a good bit, anyways. Maybe they're putting, like I said, Jacob Martin in on certain situations like that. Um, but I would rather have someone where you're not just, you're holding on for dear life every play. Like, all right, if this is a Saquon run and it's going to Fowler,
Mhm.
like this is not going to be good. And it was just, I think that will be it in itself a vast improvement. And I think what you said was a good point. A lot of those vets out there
Mhm.
would probably be listed in that Fowler category when it comes to the run defense. Like I said, with Von Miller, Judon, who knows?
Mhm.
Like I said, Zadarius Smith is honestly like the only one where I'm like, okay, it intrigues
Yep.
me because he was good with the Lions last year, like coming
Mhm.
in like just starting pretty much right away. They were like, all right, good luck, man, and he flourished. And he's done that like his whole career. Like he just bounces around teams and it helps you like when somebody gets hurt, like Hutchinson did. So he's really the only one that I'm like, okay, I'm keeping a close eye on him. Like I said, if Armstrong gets like hurt or something, or if Dietrich Wise gets hurt, and then like Clelin Ferrell's your next starter, you might call Zadarius Smith.
Mhm.
So I think that's still definitely on the backboard. I think that's on Lance Newmark's board for a reason. Like that's his like breaking in case of emergency situation. But I don't think they're like right now like, okay, they want to see what they have. They,
Mhm.
they, they want to see who can develop. I mean, Clelin Ferrell isn't that old, and he was, a high draft pick. And like I said, Jean Baptiste, 7th round pick, but he's still young. Like they have a lot of bodies, but you can't know what you have unless you really see what you
Mhm.
have. And it sounds like that's kind of the route they want to go this season. And I trust that and I respect that.
I think this is a very, play it by ear situation where you see what happens in OTAs, you see what happens in training camp. Maybe if things get really desperate during the regular season and you feel like you're not getting what you want out of your current guys, maybe you pull the plug, but I honestly don't think it's necessary with where they're at right now. And I do have one final question to
Mhm.
ask. OTAs are officially underway. Again, this isn't the mandatory OTAs. Those are coming soon, though. I guess what are just some of the main things you're going to be paying attention to or looking out for now that we have OTAs and we're getting more into the important off-season stuff?
Yeah, so for me, it's those competitions. I
Mhm.
mentioned it a little bit with the edge group. I just want one of those guys to really solidify
Mhm.
themselves. But we've heard it about what 4 or 5 times now. They've said competition, 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 and especially on the offensive line, like they said, everything is open except left tackle. That's Laramie. Like that tells you how good Laramie
Yeah.
Tunsil is for a team that preaches like
Yeah.
you earn your spot, your competition. Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, Cliff have all three said that's LT. He's out there.
Mhm.
Nobody else is touching that spot. But even like Tyler Biotish at center, they're not even
Mhm.
like name dropping him. They just say it's an open competition. So I want to see the best five. I like whatever that looks like. And I think it'll be Josh Connolly, right tackle, Coleman either at left guard or right guard, Wiley, moving back into guard. And then of course, like I said, Tyler Biotish, and then if Cosme can come back sooner rather than later, great. That's it. That is an excellent thing. But it's also a good thing to not have to worry about that and know your offensive line is set until he does come back. So he's not rushing back or anything like that. So that's a position battle I'm looking at. Slot receiver, Jalen Lane and Luke
Mhm.
McCaffrey. I think that's Lane's job right now. But like Luke, what do you got year two? How's that development going? What does that look like? And then the safety room. I talked about it briefly. I'm a little concerned with it. I don't know what to expect out of Will Harris, and I hope he wins me over. I think coverage wise, it'll be better. I'm just hoping like because we missed that like thumper of Jeremy Chin.
Mhm.
That's one thing. Like he was gonna like lay somebody out. But there's in the run game, minus that one Saquon run where he's like sideways trying to get Saquon. That's impossible. Like
Yeah.
nobody's doing that. Like Fred Warner probably wouldn't even make that kind of tackle at that angle. Um, but I just hope that physicality is still there in the back end. I like a safety room that puts fear into people, like back in the day, like with, when we had Sean Taylor back there or like Ed Reed days or Brian Dawkins days, like that's what I want out of my safety room. So I'm a little concerned how it is back there. But hopefully a fully healthy Quan can take another jump and keep developing. But then just the new guys too. I just want to see how
Mhm.
everyone really gets
Yeah.
together. And we've seen that with Debo already. Debo's like, they've accepted me with open arms. Like, I feel like I've been here for a while. It feels like he's been there for a while. It's only been a couple months, but the trade happened like that long ago. But he just said, like, everyone, like, it seems like I've been playing here. Like, it's such like a family atmosphere with the team. So I just want to see all those new guys get together. And of course, Laramie will show up and Terry will show up. And then, of course, a lot of more we'll get there for mandatory. But there's a lot of storylines, so don't buy into this. There's nothing to talk about, Matthew. Don't buy into the name change talk. There's a lot of great storylines, and it's a good team to cover. It's a good team to talk about. We're not struggling. Like, should we draft a quarterback in 10 months? Like, we're done with those conversations, and I'm thankful, man. It's a great
Yeah.
time to cover the team.
I think for me, it's probably guard that I'm most paying, or not guard, but I'd say offensive line as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the Cosme injury, we're unsure about him. I know Quinn gave some positive signs of his recovery. We're still not sure what that looks like. Maybe Allegretti has to move. Connerly might have to move. Brandon Coleman could potentially take that right guard position. There's still just a lot of questions surrounding the offensive line. And then also running back is really interesting, in my opinion,
Yes, big time.
because Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, both of their contracts expire after the season. They take Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in the 7th round of the draft, and I feel like I've only heard good things about him so far. I feel like everyone's really excited to see what he can do. A lot of analysts are saying he might be the steal of the draft, right? There's been just a lot of hype surrounding Merritt. What do you think his role is going to look like this year? And it's interesting because I feel like it's mainly going to be when Brian Robinson is either injured or tired and just waits and or not waits, but takes a snap. He's on the sideline
Mm-hmm.
because Eckler is always going to be the third down back. You're not going to see that from Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and then Robinson is going to be the first down, second down back. So I think if Robinson needs a breather, that's probably when you're going to see the most of Krosky-Merritt on the field this year.
Yeah, for me, first off, I like him a lot. He's a really good guy. I mean, I remember watching the Shrine Bowl. I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
He broke out, and then I was tweeting about him, and like I started talking to his agent, and I was like, man, this guy's like, he looks great. Like, he's doing some spin moves. Like, he was a late attendee there, and um, just going back and watching like his New Mexico tape and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I feel like day one, he's the only real running back on the team that has that elusive and speed
Yeah.
to like finesse type of style of run. Like, we know B Rob's just north south, he's gonna bruise you up, and that's fine if he's healthy. If he's not, that's the worst kind of running back you kind of want to be, because you need to turn your legs and stuff like that, and you're just not getting it from the leg injuries he had last year. So hopefully he's healthy. Like, that's first thing first. Hopefully B Rob's healthy and we can get that kind of B Rob back. But secondly, we have needed that kind of running back that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is. And I think some fans just think, oh, week one, he's going to be the starting running back. And
No.
maybe he is. Maybe he is. But I don't see it going that route. I see it being more of that kind of change of pace. And, you kind of want to do some outside runs. You want to do some outside like option plays where, Jaden keeps it, things that he thrived in last year. But still, Ja'Cory can get it. And if he gets it and he's taking it to the outside, he can create some big plays. But I think I love Eckler to death. That's my guy.
Yeah.
But I think some of those reps that he's getting, like those situations, I think a lot of those are going to go to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And once again, it's not, saying anything bad about Eckler. He's getting old. He had 2 bad concussions last year. I think he'll still have his opportunities this year, but I think you're going to start to see like that fade throughout the season. Like, if they're here starting the season, they're going to pull back the fader on Eckler and maybe boost up Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt just a little bit as the season goes on. So I don't want fans, and I know I'm high on him too. I love Bill. We'll call him Bill. I love what he can do, and I'm excited. But I just don't want fans going into it and like that he's going to be the guy week one, like starting, and then B Rob comes out. Everyone's like, "Oh, here we go again!" Like,
Yeah.
B Rob's starting. Like, why is he starting? But I think there definitely is a role for him to get snaps, and it's going to go up throughout the season. So be patient, is what I want to say.
And I like Brian Robinson Jr., but I'm not crazy high on him right now. We saw the injuries towards the end of last season, and it felt like whenever we handed it off to him on third down, it was kind of just giving away the ball. For how aggressive Dan Quinn is, it felt like we did that actually way too much towards the end of the season, especially when he wasn't 100% healthy. He's not the elusive guy. He's not going to break out for that 40-yard touchdown that you could maybe see from Krosky Merritt. So I think it will be very interesting to see what that distribution looks like. But, as any late round running back in the draft, I think you will see him over time, as you mentioned, get more and more reps, eventually maybe be the number one guy at the start of next season. But that's definitely something I'm going to, be paying attention to during the rest of the offseason. With that being said, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say to the people watching before we wrap things up? Where can they find some of your work?
Yeah, so you can follow me on social media at Josh Taylor FB, just like football, just after my name. Got a lot of exciting things cooking up. I appreciate you for having me on here, man. I'm excited to watch it. I'm really big on just watching, especially up and coming people. And I'll say this, like I don't know how old you are, but like at that's probably my one regret in life is not doing this sooner and just acting like you have to go for like one thing, like, oh, I have to go like to college for something other than sports. I have to do this. I have to go the way of the world. Like, never ever do that.
Yeah.
So like it's not easy running like a YouTube channel and being consistent and doing content and stuff like that. It's, there's a lot of it out there. It's saturated, but just be yourself, man. And you're killing it already. I'm excited to see it. And I love seeing other really good people and the fan base do their thing. So I'm excited to keep up with it, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate the kind words. Again, I can't thank you enough for coming on. For anyone watching, I really appreciate you tuning in. You see, like and subscribe at the top. It would really help out the channel, as we're starting this new podcast. But as always, I'm your host, Matthew Heiserman, alongside Josh Taylor for your Raise Hail Report, Episode 1. And as always, we will see you next time.